Yesterday we were found in 1 Corinthians chapter 13 for our first session regarding love. Today we're yet again in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, but for our second session. There'll be 3 sessions. The other one tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Atlantic Daylight Time, as we are now, 8 a.m. Atlantic Daylight Time. And we want to take a look at love. That's the key focus here in the theme, if you will, within the chapter. I encourage you, if you've not seen our first session, to check it out in the archived portion there. So yesterday we looked at how important love is. It's so important that even if you are capable of producing supernatural powers, and even if you're capable of being a very benevolent person, even if you're capable of laying down your life for the cause, if you will, and don't have love, even if you have faith that could move mountains, right? Remove mountains, even if you have that kind of work, if it's not coupled with love, with charity, then it's, well, as Paul would describe it to his brethren, it's kind of useless. Makes a lot of noise, but it doesn't really bring any kind of fruit, does it? It's not productive. It's not fruitful. It's not healthy. It's not growing. He uses words like noisy gong and clanging cymbal, and words like nothing or useless, vain. It profits me nothing. It doesn't have any return on my investment. If, again, you have all these abilities, speaking to them within the context of the first century during the age of the miraculous powers that could be seen. And he would say, hey, listen, even if you have all of that stuff, but you don't have love, you don't have anything. You don't have nothing. Nothing's going on for you. It's not producing anything. Even if you're capable of being a very benevolent individual, somebody who's out there giving to the poor or giving to your own brethren who are in need and things like that. But if you don't have love, it's really nothing. It's not producing anything. It's useless. You could have faith, trust, such a powerful faith and trust so as to remove a mountain. In other words, to build something that nobody could expect it to be built. It could be an institution, an organization, a movement. You could build any kind of influence in the community, whether it be socio-political, religious, whatever. You can build anything and do anything. But if it's not done with love, then it's useless. It doesn't produce anything. It's not healthy. It's not growing. And we touched base on how that is true and real in our current generation. It's the same principle. It's the same function. You can have brethren behind the pulpit or shepherding who are scholarly, who know the scriptures by its law very well. From Genesis all the way to Revelation, two covenants, 2 testaments, and they can know it very, very well. They can build all kinds of stuff. But some of them don't have love, so they crumble. They never produce. It's not fruitful. It's not pleasing before God. I mean, God's pleased with benevolence. God's pleased with faith. God's pleased that we learn the ability to teach people in different languages. God's pleased with us knowing the Bible scholarly-like, to be able to teach it, proclaim it, study it, learn it, teach it, proclaim it, and He's pleased with all those things. That's not the problem. The problem is if it's not connected with the proper motive of the heart, if it's not connected with true, pure love and charity for our fellow man, then it's useless. So that's kind of the department of conversation we had during our first session yesterday at 8 a.m. while we were in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 1, 2, and 3. And again, I encourage you to go check that out if you haven't already. So today we're going to do verse 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8a. That's what we want to look at. We'll put the text up on the screen. We'll have a conversation about that. And we'll see how it goes. I appreciate all of you tuning in. all of you who will stick around and just have this conversation with us and kind of have an encouragement to it, right? Being built up within its inspired words, the scriptures. So let's go ahead here and I'll put the screen on for its text. There we go. So on the screen is from the King James Version. I also have open before me the New American Standard Bible, and sometimes I'll use both, if you will. Quote from both. I also have study tools available we can put up on the screen to look at the greater description of the words that will be regarding love. Because, again, yesterday we found out that all the good things that are pleasing to God should be practiced, but they should be practiced with love. And if they're not found with love, then there's a major deficit. There's a major problem, and we're not pleasing to God if we don't have love with all the good works that He calls us to practice. In other words, let's follow His law, but let's follow His law with love, because you can't have law without love. If you have love without law, you got a problem. There's a breach that can be taken advantage of. There's a breach in the wall, and the enemy will indeed seek to infiltrate. Some of us know very well what that looks like, how that operates. Some of us have become the victims of those moments, have learned great wisdom through those moments. And we're telling you, listen, if you have law without love, there is a breach in your wall. The fortitude has been compromised, and the enemy will seek to enter. If you have love without law, you're in the same category. You have to have law and love. To have one without the other is a problem. And it's going to be a problem for your faith. It's going to be a problem for your faith independently. It's going to be a problem for the faith collectively as we assemble as His Majesty's house, His Majesty's local assembly. Shepherds need to have this in the wisdom of discernment when it comes to these moments. Law and love combined, well-seasoned, balanced. Which is why, of course, the scriptures would speak about an elder not being a novice. An elder is a shepherd. An elder is a servant. And he serves in realm of expediency and also in realm of guidance, wisdom, discernment, security. And there is no greater threat than the spiritual infiltration of a delinquent entity, a delinquent and devastating practice. So law and love is most necessary. Good morning, Anik. Good morning, Brandon. It's good to see you with us and all others who are tuning in on our various locations. We're streaming live on our Facebook page, Added Souls, on my Rumble channel, and on my YouTube channel. And then it's uploaded on all other platforms that go into the podcast world, Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon, Google, all that kind of stuff. So yesterday, we had a most important opening session regarding how important that not only we hold on to law, that we know the law, that we practice the law, that we are obedient to the law, submissive to the law, but with love. A combination. Spirit and truth, right? You can't, Jesus said you'll worship me in spirit and truth. You can't have one without the other. You can't have the law without the proper motive of the heart. You can't have the proper motive of the heart without law. And that is, again, an example we see out there in the ocean of religious confusion all the time. You'll find a location that is with the proper motive of love. They have the right kind of heart. They just don't have the law. And so they miss the mark. Lawlessness. And then you have the other side who are upright with the law, but there's no love within them. The motive is not for Christ and charity and love. It's not there. it's corrupted, and they too miss the mark. So both independently and collectively in a local assembly, we must be people who uphold law and love. So yesterday we read the opening verses of 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I am become a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith, so that I could remove mountains, and I have not charity, I am nothing. Now, within the context here, it's very important for us to understand Paul is speaking the immediacy of their age. In the first century, regarding supernatural powers that were taking place, that was an observation and practice. They lived within that context. It was permitted for them in a given amount of time by God's law, God's mind, to confirm the word. The scaffolding was set up. The house was built. The house is built. We take down the scaffolding. Okay, we had a conversation a bit about that. And Paul will certainly speak more upon that very fact in verses 8 through 13, which we'll look at tomorrow for our session. Today, we want to solely focus on the descriptive nature of love, because yesterday we learned we need it. Without love in the mix, without love mixed in with law, in cooperation with law, we are useless. We are not productive. We're not healthy. We're not growing. So what is love then? Because if I'm obeying the law, I need to know love to combine it with. That makes it productive. So what is love? And that's kind of what we're going to be looking at there. And though I bestow, verse 3, and though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. Doesn't profit anything. Doesn't matter what I have. It doesn't matter all the faith I have. Doesn't matter all those things, if it's not combined with love, with charity. Okay. Morning, Michelle. Good to see you. Good to see you. Very encouraging to see all of you tuning in here with us. So now we start in verse 4 in regards to the description of love. The world out there has its own its own fleshly image of what love should be, right? And it usually in the realm of unrighteous lust and perversion and abuse and things like that. Well, we're not participating in the world and what it calls love, because the world calls evil good and good evil. It's very good at that. It'll do so when it pollutes religious affairs or political realms. Wherever it infects, it will contaminate to call good evil and to call evil good. And we don't want to fall prey to those deceit, that manipulation. So we go straight to the book of love to know what love is. We don't want to be looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for love. We don't want to be found in that portion of our society. We want to be understanding love through its inspired information. So Paul speaks these descriptive words to his brethren. Charity suffereth long, and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. Okay, my New American Standard Bible would say love is patient, love is kind, and it's not jealous. Love does not brag, and it's not arrogant. Once you start to understand truly the descriptive nature of these words, these practices, these commands that we must follow, it's law. It is law, but it must be fulfilled by the passion of a pure heart. Once we're going to open up the words here in our study tools to look at the original language and have greater insight, it fuels our faith with discernment. It helps us understand a few things. It helps us understand that, it furnishes our thoughts with the ability to recognize what is not love. If I'm trying to say it best I can. Knowing what love is through the description of the scriptures gives us the fuel we need to see what is not love. So that way we won't be caught in the cunning manipulation of evil men, evil workers, Pharisaical types that take over congregations or form a Sanhedrin of sorts, right? A collective body of gatekeepers, or we won't fall prey to that because we'll be able to discern it. We'll be able to say, yeah, they may speak the law, they may teach the law very accurately, and it's very charming the way they teach the law. They teach it well. They teach it accurately. They teach the truth regarding the law, but look at their behavioral attributes. They're delinquent. They're evil. They're jealous. They're greedy. They're manipulative. They're deceitful. They're very unrighteously cunning. They take advantage of people with flattery and intimidation. They have a heavy hand. They are brash. They are controlling. They're puffed up with pride. They are unrighteously divisive. And they devour. They recruit for their selfish agendas. Then you'll be able to see the difference. So you'll be able to see, yeah, okay, they know the law. They teach it well, but it's all for naught. It's a noisy gong. It's a clanging cymbal. It's all for naught. It holds no profit. There's no return on that investment because they have no charity. They have no love, no compassion, no patience. No, you'll be able to discern that if you have the heart to recognize the true teaching of love. Good morning, Diane. It's good to see you with us. It's good to see all of you tuning in here. I hope I get to see your comments. I see those comments thus far. I'll check in because if you have a comment, you have a question, you have something you want to contribute, by all means do so, and when I see it, I'll share it. Okay, so again, verse 4, charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. And that's from the King James. That's right, Brandon. It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. Some brethren who have not gone through the sorrow and loss and devastation, destruction that comes at the hand of a wolf in sheep's clothing, at times they miss the mark in identifying it and discerning it. For instance, what's the clothing here? Well, it's a wolf who pretends to be a sheep. How does he do that? Well, he knows the law. He knows the gospel very well. See, then we think him to be a sheep. Then we think him to be a tender creature following the master, right? Oh, well, he must be. He knows the law. He knows the gospel. He teaches it very well. Well, does he have love? Well, no, he doesn't. Is he productive? Of course not. He pushes everyone away. He alienates himself against everyone. He brings reproach to the name of Christ in the local assembly. His reputation in the community is not good. He's known as a bad person. You don't want to be next to this person, a toxic person. Yeah, but he knows the gospel. See, you can be found deceived by his cloak, his masquerade. What's his masquerade? What's his cloak? He knows the law. Yeah, but it's not enough. The Bible says quite clearly that's not enough. Jesus himself, to his apostles, all of them in the New Testament is replete with this theme. Knowing the law is necessary. You must know the law, follow the law, obey the law, teach the law. The Jews in the system and covenant of the Old Testament, they were born and raised in the covenant to teach, preach. They were raised to read, recite, know, learn, teach, preach the covenant, the law. But they withdrew themselves from love. So they knew the law and they practiced the law, but because they had no love of the truth, of the law and reality, thy word is true, they did not have love for their fellow man found within the passion of their hearts. They were in a deficit, and Jesus kept rebuking them to that end. Yes, you are pleasing to God because you obey the law, but you are not pleasing to God because your heart's not in it. You are malicious, duplistic, sinister, premeditated with pride and control, divisive, unrighteously so. And that has you in a deficit eternally. You miss the mark. Can't do that. So we have to understand and discern the difference between a brother who may have a whole bunch of love but no law. That's a problem. Or a brother who has all the law but no love. That's a problem. We have to be properly balanced. Knowing the descriptive nature of love within 1 Corinthians 13:4 and following gives us that ammunition to see a brother and say, you know what? He is well-balanced and round. That's why you want shepherds that are well-balanced, not novice. They have this wisdom. Doesn't need to be 95 years old. Brother can be a 40-year-old, a 45-year-old. He has to be someone. Some brethren gain wisdom much sooner than others. Some run away from it, so they don't have it, even at 95. They have no wisdom at 95, even though they've spent 50, 60 years in the Lord's house. No wisdom. Can't see it. And I know I've spoken to elders just like that. I've spoken to elders who sided with evil, who sided with the wolf in sheep's clothing, who sided with the gatekeeper, who sided with the Pharisaical, the diatrophic, the evil workers. They couldn't discern it. Elders who've been in the church for decades couldn't discern right from wrong. Just couldn't do it. And I've spoken to many other elders who could discern it quite easily because they had been through such moments. They had the wisdom, the heart to understand law and love and discern that very important matter to discern. Good morning, our dear sister ID. It's good to see you with us, truly. I'm really happy. Many of you tuning in with us, learning with us. So we're going to learn now, going to start to open up the words and see. Because again, not only will it benefit us in practice, not only does it put the mirror before us, in the image of the great I am, we say, am I an individual? Am I a Christian who has the faith to follow Christ and practice these descriptive words that reveal what love truly is? Like, first and foremost, we look inside of ourselves, right? Am I the person who's driven by law but have no love? Or do I understand these very well? I understand love, but I just don't know law all that much. Like, who am I here? Is my heart right? Am I the one whose heart needs to repent, to change? I've asked myself that many times. I ask it every day. I found myself in moments that were devastating. And I had to look in the mirror. What did I do wrong? Now, sometimes after assessment, after sober assessment and self-control, you look at all the evidence, you look at all the facts, you look at the eyewitnesses, the accounts, and you are freed. You are not the guilty party. You are relieved from the accusations. But you've learned that there were certainly some blind spots you could have patched up. You learned that you had some vulnerabilities that were taken advantage of you. You learned that there was a breach in the wall. The enemy entered, called himself a friend, devoured you. You became a loyalist. And then when the snake bit, when the very snake we praised, that we defended, had poisoned us, had bit us, we woke up from the spell, we're like, wow, what happened there? That wasn't love. That wasn't love at all. Charity suffereth long. Let's put up our study tool here so we can get into the Greek. Let's just look at a few things here. Love, noun, nominative, feminine, singular, song, from agape, love. Agape, in other words, affection or benevolence, especially a love feast. Agapeo is patient. Agapeo, from agapeo, love, in other words, affection or benevolence, especially a love feast. Which is interesting because Paul had just mentioned to them while we studied it in our session yesterday in regards to benevolence. If I give all my possessions to feed the poor, if I have a true and tremendous act of benevolence towards my fellow man, but it's not coupled in cooperation with love, agapeo, a true passionate heart of affection and compassion for my fellow man, then, as Paul would say, it profits me nothing. It has no return on the investment. It's a loss. It's in a deficit. It's not fruitful. It's not healthy. It's not growing. Interesting. Interesting indeed. Is patient, it says. Love is patient. What's love? Well, sacrifice of oneself, isn't it? A true affectionate, passionate love and compassion for another human being, benevolent towards another. Love is patient. And again, it can produce, it can teach, but if it is not found within the heart, it is in a deficit. It's not pleasing to God. Patient. What is that word here? Makrothymai. Makrothymai? Thymai? I can't pronounce these things. It's Greek. I learned the Greek, by the way. I can read the Greek. I understand its language. I just can't pronounce it, or I can't pronounce it properly, I suppose. I've got my French Acadian ways, and at times there's kind of an opposition to pronouncing these words properly. But anyways, that's the word there. It's present verb, present indicative active, third person singular for the grammar junkies out there. And it's good to know the grammar, by the way. God chose to communicate to us through words, and words formulate phrase that have grammar. So don't see it as a red flag when a brother says, "Who cares about the grammar?" Wait a minute now. God chose to communicate through his word. Words formulate phrase have grammar. You need grammar. You need to understand grammar. You don't need to become the savant of the grammar gods, to become this epistle of grammar knowledge. I mean, some do, and that's cool because they have their academic portion to it and teach it and so on and so forth. But you need to have a basic understanding of grammar so that you can rightly handle the scriptures. That's very important. If not, you'll find yourself scrambled all over the place, and you'll be applying a certain thing to a party of people who are not participating in a certain thing, and so on and so forth. It can cause a lot of confusion. We don't want to do that. So yeah, a bit of an excursion there, but please understand, grammar is important. It's not the end-all, says-all. Again, do you see how love has to be in cooperation with everything? You want to know the grammar? It's good to know the grammar. You should know the grammar. But if you know the grammar solely for its academic pursuit, and it's not coupled in cooperation with love, you're in a deficit again. You're missing the mark. You are not pleasing to God. Of course, you are pleasing to God in the portion of knowing the grammar and understanding the scholarly, endeavor of scriptural uprightness. But, I mean, without love, you're in a deficit. You're missing the mark. So here, in regards to patience, from the same as makrothumos, to be long-spirited. Isn't that interesting? To be long-spirited. In other words, forbearing or patient. So in chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians, verse 4, when it says love is patient, and we know what love is. Love, of course, has a few descriptive or synonymous portions, but within the same synonymous location, but it contributes a different angle to the description of its nature. In other words, love, sacrifice, agape, sacrifice, Philadelphia, emotionally connected, emotionally invested. So it's not only in the sacrificial portion, but it's also in the emotional portion of it, which is interesting because, again, remember what Paul said yesterday when we were reading in verse 3. If I give all my possessions to feed the poor, you would have Philadelphia. You should have an emotional compassion for the poor in order to give them. It should not be out of sheer law or outward praise from men. It has to be a true and genuine portion of love found in cooperation with that act of benevolence. And then he says, and if I surrender my body to be burned, if you are even willing to sacrifice your own life. So you have Philadelphia, you have agape, you have both the sacrificial portion of love and the emotional investment of love, but it is useless. It has no return on its investment. It's a noisy gong. It's a clanging cymbal if it's not coupled in cooperation with charity, with love. And what is love? Well, love is patient. And what is patient? Well, you're forbearing. Forbearing. Let's look at Strong's here. Kind of gives us a location, various rightly handled locations for that very end. Gives us scriptural insight, if you will. Let me check something else here just for fun. I want to see if I can find. Where are we? I think I have to go further. There we go. And I'm going to go with, commentary, let's say. Love is patient. Patience means we give others time to grow, just as God is patient with you, not wanting anyone to perish. 2 Peter 3:9. It is the Spirit-produced attitude that waits without resentment. Galatians 5:22. You're taking the time necessary with brother A, B, or C, with sister A, B, or C. You're taking the necessary time. Okay? You recognize the immaturities in brother A, B, or C, or sister A, B, or C. You recognize that at times her or his behavior is not upright. There is some immaturity there. Be patient, forbearing, long-spirited. Give brother or sister the time through God's grace to learn. If brother or sister have just recently converted to Christ, they're not going to know the same kind of things you and I know who've been in the church for a decade plus. Give them the time to learn. Be patient with them. That is love. Love is having the proper heart, not in reluctance and murmur, by the way. Complaining, that is a deficit also. That is not pleasing to God. That is not pleasing to God when we find ourselves going home after a service session of worship towards God. You go home, and on the way home, even the minute you enter into the vehicle, you're already murmuring and complaining about brother or sister. That you were just there with a fake smile, hugging and loving and caring. No, listen. We must have true, genuine patience, forbearing, long-spirited. We must have the love of Christ within our hearts to say, I will give brother or sister the time necessary to grow. They may have done or said something offensive. Are they malicious? No. Well, then give them time. Well, what if they are malicious? What if their hearts are corrupted and it is malicious? Then it is time for a disciplinary action. It's a matter of the heart. If the heart is malicious and within the intent to cause damage to the flock, then it must be addressed immediately. But if it is a matter of one who has just newly become a follower of the Christ, he or she is not going to have the same wisdom than some of us who have been there. And if we are transparent before God, we know we must give brother A, B, or C the patience necessary, love necessary. Why? Because God was patient with us, and God is patient with us. The shorter the fuse you have with a brother, God will, in respect, give you the same judgment. If you are quick to judge your brother, you will be quickly judged. We are not speaking of a matter of immediate disciplinary action within someone who may be malicious. We're not speaking of a diatrophic individual or a pharisaical individual. We're speaking of an individual who is a brother or sister who simply has an ignorance yet to scriptural law or brotherly interaction, behavioral upright, that one needs to learn. Do we understand? Does it make sense? Thank you to the comment found on our YouTube streaming saying, wow, you're doing a great job. I really needed this. Thank you so much. That is very encouraging to hear that. Very humble to hear that. This is why we do this, so that you and I together can learn and become better human beings on this earth, and more so pleasing to God, and more so welcoming and approachable to our fellow brethren. Okay, so love is patient. Love is sacrificial. It is emotionally involved in cooperation with the law. Love is patient. Patient is suffering long. It is a forbearing of sorts. Again, there are many synonymous interactions here and engagements, but yet with angles of a different or a contributing description, and it has practical application. And if you're paying attention, that we're sharing that. Carolyn is with us. It's good to see you, Carolyn, as always. Such a blessing to have all of you and our growing audience and participants. We're learning of love. Yesterday, in our first session series this week, we looked at verses 1, 2, and 3 of 1 Corinthians. I encourage you to check that out if you haven't yet. And we are also, now today, in our second portion, our second session, we're looking at 4, 5, 6, and 7, and we're looking at the description of love. Carolyn says, better, not bitter. Amen. We have to. And that gives me a bit of ammunition to a further thought regarding patience. If we leave the assembly immediately in murmur and complaint, we reveal ourselves bitter towards brother A, B, or C. And that is an inward deficit. Again, making us vulnerable to be recruited, devoured by devils. Because devils, they prowl around all the time. And they are seeking for a vulnerability to infiltrate, to contaminate, to take over, to take advantage of. And if it's bitterness, they'll use that. I've seen it in real time. I've seen individuals being recruited by wolves in sheep's clothing by their vulnerabilities, by seeing, oh, this person has a blind spot here. This person has a jealousy here. This person has a bitterness there. I'll manipulate, I'll take advantage of that and recruit them to my agenda. And they do. They do. So we have to be better, not bitter. Becoming bitter at a brother or sister is going to have us in the same eternal consequence, and we don't want to be found there. So it continues to say, in kind of a commentary here of sorts, it is the Spirit-produced attitude that waits without resentment. You see, Galatians 5:22. If we click there, what does it say? But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness. Another location that we will certainly be looking at as in the future, Lord willing, regarding the descriptive nature of love. Practical picture, it says, bearing with a difficult friend, spouse, child, or church member with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love. In love. Ephesians 4:2 would bring us to read, be completely humble and gentle, be patient, bearing with one another in love. Again, not in contradiction to what Paul wrote to the brethren in Rome, chapter 16, verse 17 and 18, not what Titus wrote, not what 3 John wrote, not what Jesus wrote in Matthew 23 or spoke and was recorded, witnessed and recorded account. It is not in contradiction here. He is speaking of brethren who may struggle in immaturity, that are growing. He's speaking to that persuasion, that portion. He is not speaking of the malicious brute who is simply there out of sinister intent to cause destruction. He's not speaking of those we must withdraw from, those we must immediately recognize, point out, mark publicly, and say, we have nothing to do with that individual. Avoid at all costs. We have to rightly handle the text here. He is speaking of brethren who need to mature, who need to learn further, and you and I are being patient with it. You understand? He's not necessarily living in sin. He is perhaps simply learning to adjust behavioral characteristics, personality traits, social engagements, various things like that. And he may not know, in his newness in Christ, he may not know yet all the wisdom. Obviously, he will not know yet all the wisdom that some who have been in the church much longer would have or should have. So that's why we are certainly, with all humility and gentleness, being patient. Bottom line, true love refuses to hurry people toward our agenda. It mirrors the long-suffering character of God. Okay? Very important. So That is within the portion of patience. Love is patient. Remember it. You want to practice love? Love is patient. What else does it say? It says love is kind. Love is kind. Well, what does kind mean? Well, let's go look. We'll take a look at that. Let me see which portion we can find. Patient, love is kind, love, agape, from agapeo, affection, kind. All right, let's see if we can find Strong's. To be kind, full of service to others. Full of service to others. Gentle. Middle voice from Christos. To show oneself useful. In other words, act benevolently. See, kindness is not necessarily just, well, how should I say it? Kindness, to be kind. Love is kind. So we need to know what kindness is. Kindness is an action. Kindness is an action. To be kind produces itself with an approachable tone. It has tact, an approachable tone. It's not in the realm of intimidation. It's not in the realm or unrighteous intimidation or flattery. It is a true, genuine act of service. You open the door to someone. You greet them. Handshake, a hug, kind words. You bless them with a gift. You bless them with a moment of honor. You produce an outward action. You help them move. That's very kind of you. You've helped them move their furniture. You've helped them find employment. You've produced love within the descriptive branch of kindness. You see that? You've cooked someone a meal. You've brought Sister so-and-so a nice warm soup. She was sick. You've sat, you've prayed with her. That's very kind of you. That's very kind of you. Right? Love is kind. Again, all of these things, if not in cooperation with love, if you're patient without love, it's useless. If you're kind without love, it's useless. What is love? It must be driven by the proper motive of the heart. It must have a true and genuine sacrificial emotional investment in your fellow man towards God and his saints. It can't be, well, I suppose I have to. Again, we go, for the perfect example, you go to the scriptures, Jesus himself descriptively saying so in Matthew chapter 6 when he was telling his brethren, hey, listen, it has to be more than just, well, I didn't cheat on my wife physically, literally physically. I didn't have any sexual intercourse with another woman. Well, that's good. That's the law. That's pleasing to God that you didn't do that, but you are in a deficit. You have missed the mark because you do so in your heart, with your eyes, in your mind. The motive of your heart is not right. It's one thing to say, I show up to church, I give in the collection plate, I'm benevolent, I do this, I do that, I do everything I'm supposed to do. Yeah, but your heart's not right with God and with your fellow man. You have a bitter, not better. I'm going to use that now, Carolyn. You have a bitter, not better heart. That's not right. You're missing the mark. You're not pleasing to God. So if you want to be patient with the proper motive of the heart. Sacrificial, emotional investment. If you want to be kind with the proper motive of the heart. Sacrificial, emotionally invested. I mean, again, I didn't make this up. Look at what Paul was saying to us, and we looked into this yesterday. Verse 1, 2, and 3 of chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians, Paul was saying, hey, listen, you can have all these things. You can speak in all sorts of different languages. You can know the scriptures from A to Z in its original languages. You can have the deepest, profoundest faith. You can be benevolent. You can give your life to it. But if it's not in cooperation with love, then you're in a deficit. There's a problem, right? So love is patient, love is kind. To be kind has to be with love. To be patient has to be with love. Gentle, middle voice from Christos, to show oneself useful. In other words, act benevolently. You want to open the door to brother so-and-so. You want to or sister so-and-so. You want to shake their hand. You want to give them a hug. You want to give them words of encouragement. You want to bless them with a gift. You want to serve them. You want to cook a meal. You want to share with them faith and love, life. Do we understand that? Love is patient. Love is kind. Right? We're taking the time to let brother or sister grow and mature in Christ. We're not heavy-handed. We're not quick to condemn. We're not unrighteously pushing them away. See, that would be the opposite of love. And some of us have been in the church long enough to see the opposite of love. Opposite of love falls in the deep oubliette of chaos, devastation, self-righteous hypocrisy, slander, bearing false witness, unrighteous, divisive, malicious practices. Some of us have been the victims of those moments. No, love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. Well, what's that about? It does not envy? What is that? Let's take a look here if we can. It's patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. Ziloi. Verb, present, indicative, active, third person, singular. Strong says, from zelos, to have warmth of feeling for or against. That's interesting. So you have this lust, this fleshly desire, an excitement of sorts. In which direction? It does not envy. So love does not. So it's in the negative. It doesn't. Love is not going to produce envy. Love is not going to produce envy. What is envy? A warmth, a zeal towards something or against. To have warmth or feeling for or against. Zeloi does not envy. Interesting. Interesting here. Let me see. Let me see the flow of it. Does not envy. Love does not. Let's go back here and let's read this again. Love is patient. Okay, we got patient. We understand. We've looked into patient. Love is kind. Yep. Okay, kind. It does not. Not. So it does. It is not participating in whatever envy is. In whatever envy is. What does a commentary would say about that? Love is patient. Love is kind. Let's see. Love does not envy. Let's see what it says there. It does not envy. And then it gives us 1 Corinthians 13:4b. Let's look at that. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not boast. It's not proud. I don't know. Envy resents another's blessing. Aha. Okay, now we're getting somewheres. Envy resents another's blessing. Love celebrates it. Aha, I like that. I like that. I think that makes sense. I think that's kind of what Paul was trying to tell us, right? Right? That makes sense. Like love, sacrificial love, emotional investment love, the proper motive love. It's not going to resent another's blessing. It's not going to find resentment in another's blessing. That's interesting. Let me check something here real quick. Let's see. Define resentment. Just for fun, I want to see what it says there. The act of resenting. The state of holding something in the mind as a subject of contemplation or of being inclined to reflect upon something, a state of consciousness, conviction, feeling, impression, a resentment. What does Merriam say here? A feeling of indignant displeasure. Yeah, that sounds closer to what we're dealing with here. A feeling of indignant displeasure or persistent ill will at something regarding as wrong. I think that would probably be more so the case of what's happening here, right there. A feeling of indignant displeasure or persistent ill will at something regarded as wrong, insult, or injury. That's interesting to me. That's interesting. So, envy resents another's blessing. It has ill will towards it. It's bitter against it. So love does not envy. Love is not going to do that. Love's not going to have you all jealous and bitter and feeling ill will against a brother or sister who is successful. Who is successful. Successful in all sorts of different departments. Could be successful in his or her work, her employment. Successful in what God has blessed this individual with. Success in many ways. Well, why does this brother always have to do this? Why does that sister always... Like, you don't... Love is not envious of that. Love's not going to have this ill will thought, this bitterness against a brother or sister, fellow neighbor, coworker, friend, family. Love's not going to fall prey to the behavioral delinquencies of envy. Right? That's starting to make sense to me. Love's not going to do that. Love's not going to practice envy towards another's blessings. Love would celebrate it. Wow, I'm so happy you've been blessed to purchase a new vehicle. What a blessing that is. I'm so I'm very joyful with you. I'm very encouraged with you. That you've worked hard. God has blessed you. What a wonderful thing that is. Or envious. Well, brother so-and-so with his vehicle. Then you start to find murmur and complaint again. Jealousy seeps in, bitterness seeps in, all because of this envious ill will towards. In your heart, you want them to crash the car. I hope they crash the car. I hope they total the car. Got a new house. I hope his house burns down. Right? Love doesn't do that. Love doesn't seek ill will towards another. It's not envious. We can't go to heaven if we have that kind of heart, an envious heart filled with resentment, filled with, and it's a burden, isn't it? If your heart's filled with bitterness and resentment and envy, that's a burden on you, man. That's heavy. And it won't have you healthy and productive. It won't have you growing and flourishing and fruitful and positive and embracing and welcoming and approachable. It won't have you on the way to heaven. We can't be envious, resentful, bitter, ill-willed against a brother or sister, because God's blessed them, because they are faithful and loving and kind, and God's blessed them. God has exalted them. Be joyful with them. What a blessing that is. A brother has worked hard and has become a physician. Well, man, that's awesome. We have a physician in the congregation now. Isn't that a blessing? Oh, well, brother so-and-so, he's so privileged. He was born with a silver spoon. Look at how privileged he is. Of course, he has the money to go to school and become a physician. We don't have that. But be quiet. You're a discouragement. Go home. Change your heart. Pray to God. Ask for forgiveness. Beg for forgiveness. There's something wrong with you. Well, why should brother so-and-so always have? Why should brother so-and-so... Be quiet. Maybe brother so-and-so was recognized and God exalted him. Brother so-and-so is successful. Brother so-and-so has a productive and fruitful and faithful work. Envy resents another's blessing. Love celebrates it. Right? So we don't want... Proverbs 14:30 warns that envy rots the bones, while James 3:16 links it to disorder and every evil practice. You don't want to be found in a local congregation that is driven by the lunacy of these toxic behavioral delinquencies. Some of us know what that's. You don't want to stay there. Jesus left that place a long time ago. Wake up. You don't want to be with those kind of people. They're envious. They're jealous. They're bitter. They're greedy. They're controlling. They're prideful. They're manipulative. They take preeminence. They recruit for their agenda. You don't want to be around that. That's not love. Yeah, but they sure know how to preach the gospel. And the devil knows how to preach the gospel, buddy. Wake up. You're a slave to hate. No, we don't want to be slaves to hate. We want to know love. Michelle says we are to pick each other up, not push them down. That's it. That's it. Instead of envy, love chooses gratitude and rejoices when others are honored. That's it. That's what we want to do. We want to know how to practice love with the proper motive of the heart. Instead of envy, which love is not envy, love is not resentful, love is not seeking to ill will upon a brother or sister. No, love chooses gratitude. It's thankful and it rejoices. It finds great joy when others are honored. Faithful brethren are honored and successful. We celebrate with them their anniversaries, their birthdays, their employment accomplishments, their materialistic blessings. They get a vehicle. They have a house. We're thankful. And that's in one portion. And another portion, even more so in priority and focus, is if they are successful spiritually to bringing people to Jesus. We must celebrate with that. Why is brother... Instead of being, oh, look at all the people, brother. All that growth there. No, that growth can't be righteous. It's probably all unrighteousness. They probably... And that's the mind of a toxic individual who is not practicing love, whose heart is malicious. They see everything corrupted because they are corrupted. The East Coast congregation, the East Coast Church of Christ. I encourage you to check out the .ca if you're new here, eastcoastchurchofchrist.ca. We are submissive to one another. We are submissive to the eldership. We began with 5 souls. We are now 60-plus souls in a matter of 3 years, I think. And we continue with the forecast of growth. God's working. It's a beautiful thing, but the corrupted mind, the slanderer, the adversary, he's out there just creeping and crawling, slithering. The reason they're growing like that has to be because of... And then they insert evil motives. They insert evil situations. It's the same with Job. When God had a conversation with the devil can't conceive in his mind that Job loves God and God loves Job. No, that can't be it. God only does things to Job because Job does things to God. And Job only loves God because God gives things to Job. Like, his mind is corrupt. That's not love. That's not love. We have to be in the realm of love. Instead of envy, love chooses gratitude and rejoices when others are honored. Look at that faithful congregation and how they are doing. What a beautiful thing that is. Look at brother so-and-so. Look at sister so-and-so. She began by this small seed of ministry. And now look at the influence she has in the community. I remember sister so-and-so just a few years ago starting to knit these little socks for children. Now look at her. She's got employees and she's knitting all kinds of socks for children in the community or children at the hospital. Wow. Look at what sister has accomplished through the love of Christ, the grace of God. That's a celebration. We should celebrate her. Let's give her her honor. See, that's how that works. Try this heart check. When a friend succeeds, do I thank God for them or wish it were me? Love picks the first response. Isn't that true? Well, it should have been me. I should have got the position. I'm the one who's working hard here. Why do I never get anything? Some individuals will never wake up to the toxic environment they've created for themselves. They're always in an excuse. They're always in a deficit. They're always having problems. They can't keep any relationship, friendship, employment. They can't do anything. It's always a complaint, a murmur. It's always a slander. And they'll never wake up to it. They'll never wake up to it. The so-called gospel preacher who manages to split everything he ever touches and gets in contact with. He destroys, he depletes, he destroys, he manipulates. And in his mind, he's always blaming the other. He's the righteous one in his own conscience, but everybody else is the bad guy. And sadly, he'll die like that. No redemptive quality. Firmly convinced in his own conscience, his own pride. He's Pharaoh. He's Pharaoh. No, I will not let your people go. That's not love. That's not love. We don't want to fall prey to that. We don't want to unrighteously divide. We want to unite. We want to have our common salvation together, loving one another. What is love? Well, love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious. It's not resentful. It's not ill-willed. Love wants you to succeed. Love wants to rejoice with your success. It continues and says, love does not brag and is not arrogant, or love does not boast. So love does not envy. It does not envy. Love does kindness. Love does patience. That's what it does. Love has branches, and one of its branches is kindness, and one of its branches is patience. But what is not a branch found on the tree of love is envy and boast. Love does not boast. It does not boast. Boasting inflates self. It's a swelling. It's an infection. Love magnifies God, not self. What did Nebuchadnezzar do on top of his flat? Look at what I've done. Look at what I've created. It's all me. Me, me, me. Really? Is it? He was disciplined, wasn't he? Love doesn't boast. Look what I've done. If it weren't for me, if you pay attention to these individuals who are snared in hate and pride and control, that's how they speak. I heard one so-called gospel preacher a few years ago speaking that way. Since I took over this local assembly and got rid of all the faithful ones there, I took over and look what we've done, thinking himself successful in the midst of chaos. I'm the one who built everything here. I'm the one who did everything. No, you did nothing. You did nothing. You were a colossal failure. You remain a colossal failure. You're driven by hate, unrighteous, divisive ways, slander, lies, false witness. See, we don't want to fall prey to the knot. The knot is not in the branch of love. He was boasting. He continues to boast of his success. He has none. He's a failure. But in the blindness of his pride, he's fully convinced himself, just like the Pharisees. I'm the one who did all this. Look at what I've done. You've done nothing but destroy people's lives and friendships and marriages and local assemblies, and you're on the way to eternal destruction, firmly convinced in your mind that somehow you're righteous. You're self-righteous. That's not love. Love does not boast. Boasting inflates self. It's a swelling. It's an infection. Love magnifies God. See, the Pharisees, they sought the praise of men. They would swell themselves up for the praise of men. Look what I've done. You've done nothing. You will be remembered as a colossal failure. And when you depart this earth, you will go towards eternal judgment. Change your mind, your heart. Boasting inflates self. You ever let go of a hot air balloon? Flutters away in the air until it hits the ground. Has nothing but hot air. Love magnifies God. We know it's about God. All the wonderful growth we've experienced here at the East Coast Church of Christ, it's all God. I have brethren reaching out to me, man, what are you doing? I'm just serving. Oh, no, you must be doing something. Are you knocking doors? You got gospel weekends going? Sometimes the mind of our brethren are so functioned by this kind of tradition, this checkbox mentality where they feel they are the ones who are... No. There's no magic formula. God brings them. We teach them the gospel. They choose to follow Jesus. We serve. That's it. A membership whose lifestyle is Christianity will attract those around them in the community. What do you know? What do you know? That's it. Well, we did a lot of... Look at what we did. No, you did nothing. You served. God doesn't need us. He loves us. He created us in His image. And He permits us to participate in serving with His works. We serve. We're servants. The minute you step outside the realm and boundary of servitude, you're going to inflate yourself. You know, we at times in our dialect would say, well, his head got too big for his bridges, or his head's all puffed up. Don't let it get to your head. Well, that's the wisdom of saying, don't think yourself bigger than you are. Don't puff yourself up. Don't inflate yourself with hot air. You and I, we're just servants. We serve. Jeremiah 9:23-24 urges, let not the wise man boast of his wisdom, but let him who boasts boast in this, that he understands and knows me. Isn't that something? That's interesting, isn't it? Absolutely. There is another location in the scriptures that would say that knowledge puffs up. We are blessed with the pursuit of knowledge, scriptural knowledge, but if it's to inflate our own selves, it's all for naught. It's vain, it's idle, it's empty. It's vain. Let not the wise man boast of his wisdom. Paul echoes the same in 2 Corinthians 10:17-18, pointing all credit back to the Lord. So practical steps. Speak of achievements as gifts, not personal glory. Redirect praise. Thank you. God has been kind. Right? That's indeed the function in which we are to practice. Love. The branches of love, patient, kindness. Branches you won't find in love, envy, boasting. And then it continues and says, love is not proud. Another branch you won't find in the tree of love is proudness. It is not proud. Pride puts self first, preeminence. Love puts others first. A diatrophic individual is driven by self-inflation, boastfulness. He seeks preeminence through his pride. He puts himself first. So when he infiltrates a local assembly under the guise of friendship, he immediately seeks to achieve his desired agenda. his selfish ambition, which is to have control and have the money. So he will immediately seek to recruit with intimidation and flattery, whichever direction will accomplish his goal, to have all control of a said congregation, having driven out any opposition to his greed, to his jealousy, to his bitterness, to his divisiveness, to his control and his pride. He must immediately recruit against and remove any opposition to his delinquency. And that's exactly what he does. And so he finds low-hanging fruit, vulnerability. He finds those whose hearts are idle, those who have breaches in their faith that can be manipulated, deceived, taken advantage of, and he goes to work. And he whispers in secrecy, and he slanders, and he pins one against the other. He sows discord. He's driven by envy. He's boastful. He's proud. And once he's accomplished the goal, he's pushed out the faithful. He's pushed out the faithful, and now he has his devoured loyalists who submit to his corruption, firmly convinced in his conscience that he is righteous. But in reality, he is a colossal failure. He's put himself first. He is driven by pride. But you see, love puts others first. Love discerns the difference between the malicious brute and the kind, struggling brother who needs our love and patience. Pride puts self first, love puts others first. Philippians 2, 3, and 4 would say, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself." See, the Pharisees, Diotrephes, in 3 John, they don't do that. They put self first. They're more concerned about citizenry on earth, in this world and its fallen ways, than they are with citizenry of God's kingdom in heaven. And though they may be scholarly, and though they may know the law very well and teach it with charm or with great attraction, they miss the mark and they cause much pain. That's why Paul is so descriptive in teaching how love functions and how one must have love in his heart, because it produces, it's healthy, it grows. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. James 4:6. But he gives us more grace. That is why Scripture says, God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. It is the evidence we have with the witnesses. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Why will you find in a certain location 2 congregations, one who has poor reputation in the community, known to be heavy-handed, brash, slanderous, divisive, a toxic location, and they dwindle away until they are no longer. But yet another location finds itself flourishing and growing and healthy and embracing and joy and forgiveness and compassion and benevolence. Why do you find one working and faithful and growing and the other one depleting and dark and devastating destruction? Why do you find God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble? You will achieve more success in humility for the Christ than you can ever with the boastful inflation of your own thought for the praise of men. Proverbs 16:18 warns pride precedes a fall. Humility paves the way for God's blessing. Daily application: seek opportunities to serve in unseen ways, allowing others to take the spotlight. And that is most important, if you will, also in those of us who go behind the pulpit to proclaim the word. It can be very tempting for those who go behind the pulpit to think themselves more than they are. They're just servants proclaiming the word of God. Servants. What else does it say here? Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. Okay, we've taken a look at verse 4. Verse 5 goes and says, Well, wow, we're only 9:15. What we'll do, 9:15. We've been at it for an hour and 15. Okay, we'll cut it there. We'll cut it there. There's no rush. We don't need to rush through this just to get it done. We don't want to do that. We want to take our time with it. So we've gone through verse 4. And we looked, if you will, at kind of a word study format towards it. Again, we're not just doing this for academic pursuits. We're doing this to truly, fully embrace and practice that our hearts become better towards Christ. What we'll do is tomorrow we'll keep going. We'll keep going in this portion of Scripture, which is found in verse 4 through verse 7. We'll keep going, looking at the words. And if anything, next week we'll follow up in the chapter there. Because what we do now is we go live, or I'm trying to anyways, to remain consistent, going live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 8 a.m. Atlantic Daylight Time, on our Facebook Added Souls page, on my YouTube channel, and on my Rumble channel. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 a.m. Atlantic Daylight Time. That's what we're trying to do. Yesterday, we looked at 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 1, 2, and 3. Today, we looked at 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4. Tomorrow, we'll see how far we go. We'll do 5 and see where it goes. We want to take the time, want to learn it. I truly appreciate your kind attention, all the comments and interaction to this session. If you find any value to it, of course, go ahead and give us a thumbs up or drop a comment, share the link far and wide. And if you're new here, hey, listen, we'd love to study with you. We'd love to have you be our guest. Check out East Coast Church of Christ.ca. East Coast Church of Christ.ca. Michelle says, thank you for the lesson. God willing, we will be here tomorrow. God bless you all. God bless you, Michelle. Thank you so much for all who have interacted there. Okay, stay positive, stay focused. You are loved and you are appreciated. We'll see each other tomorrow morning, Lord willing. Peace out.